Alright, this is the last step of our build, and the first thing we're gonna do here is to assemble ourselves some kind of water filling tube so that we can fill both of our loops. I used a compressor fitting and a 45-degree adapter, as well as a plastic funnel and about a meter of flexi tube. Once done, we can take a closer look to what we are going to fill our loops with. We're going to need 2 liters of deionized water and the color coolant that we will use for each and individual loop. In our case, we have a blue pastel for our CPU loop and a clear white for our GPU loop. Also, make sure to have plenty of absorbing paper. This is a messy process and we are going to need plenty of it. Before filling our loops, we are going to put this short on our ATX 24 pin. This will allow us to start the PSU without powering the motherboard. Nothing very complex here, simply put our short adapter on the ATX 24 plug. Next, I am going to disconnect my GPU just in the case the short plug would fail. And finally, I am going to disconnect the power inlet of our GPU pump. We're not going to use it now. One more thing, let's plug in our power supply unit. We are going to need electricity. Time to plug in the water inlet we assembled earlier to our CPU loop reservoir. It's pretty straightforward, simply follow the instructions on your screen. Feel free to make a quick check on your loop before pouring the water. You just want to make sure that everything is well tightened up together. The reason why we usually use deionized water is to minimize the chances of electrical conduction in the case there is a leak. We don't want to damage any of our expensive components if there's a spill or a leak. Alright, so once your reservoir is filled about 75%, we are going to put on our PSU. This will activate our pump and get the water to circulate in the loop. We can now add more water in the reservoir, and we are going to do this until the loop is full. The point here is to make sure that the pump never runs dry. If it's on, it has to have water in it. If not, you run the risk of burning the pump. Once your loop is about 80% full, I would just keep the PSU running and take a closer look to the front and back tubing of our build. We want to make sure that at this stage there are no obvious leaks. Now comes the times of the feared 24 hours leak test. We are going to keep the PSU running and put a few absorbing papers here and there in your build. Put off the lights and let's hope for the best. 24 hours later. The moment of truth. If there are no traces of water on our absorbing papers, then we're good to go for the next stage in filling our loop. This is probably my favorite part. We are going to add the PASTEL coolant to the deionized water. Only in this final stage will we have a clear visual of what our loop is going to look like. Make sure to shake the coolant bottle before using it. Most of the ink is at its very bottom. Since the coolant is heavier than the deionized water, it makes this color cloud which travels right through your loop. I love the spectacle, it never gets old. As far as colors go, add as much coolant as you need to get the color or the visual effect that you're seeking. In my case, I'm going for a more opaque look, a real deep blue, so I'm going to use the entire 250mm coolant bottle. Once done comes the tricky part of removing our water intake from the reservoir. So first I am going to throw away the overflow of our water intake, and for the rest, you know it is going to be messy, so make sure to put some absorbing paper and make sure to have a fitting plug in hand ready to go. As you can see, I'm trying to get my reservoir to be as filled as possible to avoid big bubbles and stuff like that, especially when you have a reservoir which is in the horizontal position. It's really important. I'm keeping the 45 degrees adapter here for future reference, so it'll be easier for me to top up my loop with some fluids. Alright, that's that for the first loop. Let's take a step back, take a look at our build so far, and move on to the second loop, the GPU loop. I am going to start by reconnecting the second pump, the GPU pump, which I had disconnected in the beginning of our video. The second step is to move our water intake to the second reservoir. As you can see, I am adding a fresh 45-degree adapter in place and finally attaching our water intake to it. Since we've been through all the steps coming ahead before, I'm just gonna stay quiet, enjoy the music and let you follow the instructions on your screen. And as usual, take your time, there's no rush, and make sure to get all those steps right. As you can tell, I have performed the 24 hours leak test off camera. We don't have to get my French accent in there again. Our next move is to simply put back our ATX plug back on the motherboard as well as the GPUs. Of course, make sure to turn your PSU off before doing so. And here's the very final stage of our build. Now it's time to put back all the different metallic and glass panels who came initially with our casing.